This week on ICN, the stories you should have heard, but didn't. Audit the Fed bill reaches a majority in the House and spurs the Fed to hire PR expert. FEMA to invite foreign countries into domestic terrorism exercise. Liberty Dollar creators charged by U.S. Attorney's Office. Pentagon labels protesters as terrorists. Those stories and more next on Informed Citizen News. Hello, and welcome to ICN, Informed Citizen News, June 21st, 2009. Ron Paul's bill to audit the Federal Reserve has reached a majority of 237 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives. The bill calls for a complete account of the Fed's activities, which have always been kept secret from the public. The Audit the Fed bill is assured of passing the House and will ultimately need to get a majority in the Senate. The bill calls for a final report to be presented back to Congress by the end of 2010. This is a necessary step toward obtaining transparency on the most powerful and secretive influence on the economy. The Fed operates with little oversight and was created by Congress to supposedly be independent. The United States Constitution only allows Congress the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof. Congress, having created the Fed as independent, violated the specific direction provided in the Constitution that only Congress controls the coining of money. The American people are ultimately responsible for ensuring that Congress fulfills their constitutional role. Now that the heat is being turned up on the Fed, they have decided to hire a hotshot government PR expert. Not just any PR expert. The Fed has hired Linda Robertson. Ms. Robertson worked as Enron's head of governmental affairs until the company collapsed in 2002. What gives the Federal Reserve the authority to hire anyone to handle lobbying Congress? Her hiring goes to show the contradiction in the very existence of the Federal Reserve. Congress has the sole authority under the Constitution to coin money, which has been incorrectly used to justify the creation of the Federal Reserve. Congress created the Fed, and now the Fed lobbies Congress for preferred treatment. There is something wrong about that. It truly is the creature, as described in G. Edward Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Read this book. You'll know more about the entanglement of economics and history than 99% of college-educated Americans. At the end of July, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, will conduct a national terrorism prevention exercise. The exercise, starting on July 27th, is grand in scale and will include activities consistent with the imposition of martial law. For the first time, FEMA has invited the countries of Australia, Canada, Mexico, and the United Kingdom to participate in the domestic terrorism prevention exercise. The simulation will include activities taking place at command posts, emergency operation centers, intelligence centers, and potential field locations to include federal headquarter facilities in the Washington, D.C. area and in federal, regional, state, tribal, local, and private sector facilities. These and other previous military exercises appear to be rehearsals for martial law. We have no doubt that the lower-level participants believe that they are part of an exercise to protect the people of the United States. But when you step back and look at the operational activities, it most definitely should raise concerns. When you have a fiat currency with little to no intrinsic value, currency competition is your worst enemy. This week, the creators of the Liberty Dollar were arrested and charged with multiple counts of counterfeiting and mail fraud. The Liberty Dollar is a gold and silver-backed barter system. The FBI did a nationwide sweep 18 months ago to confiscate all the materials and documents related to the Liberty Dollar's operations. It was only this week that the U.S. Attorney's Office filed charges. Acting U.S. Attorney Edward Ryan declares in the announcement of charges, "When groups seek to undermine the U.S. currency system, the government is compelled to act. These coins are not government-produced coinage. Yet purchasers were led to believe by those who made and sold them that they should be spent like U.S. Federal Reserve notes. Such claims are in violation of federal law. The creators of the Liberty Dollar obviously disagree with the charges and have been asking for the government to charge them so that this issue may be argued in court. If the main concern is going after those who undermine the US dollar, then shouldn't the FBI be looking at the Federal Reserve? They have been undermining the US dollar since 1913. Washington has done it again. First, they profiled those backing third-party candidates as potential terrorists. Now they've lumped all protesters together as so-called low-level terrorists. In an exam that is part of a mandatory anti-terrorism refresher course given annually to Department of Defense elements and personnel, one question included in the test asked the exam taker which of the following is an example of low-level terrorism activity. They're given a choice of attacking the Pentagon, IEDs, hate crimes against racial groups, and protests. The correct answer was protests. A Pentagon spokesman said the question failed to make clear the difference between illegal violent demonstrations and constitutionally protected peaceful protests. The Pentagon has removed that controversial question from its anti-terrorism training exam that labeled protests a form of low-level terrorism, calling the question poorly worded. Papers, please. That demand is being heard all too often nowadays. A private concern called the Identity Project had an article on the latest TSA airport security policy for checking IDs. The Identity Project provides advice, assistance, publicity, education, and legal defense to those who find their rights infringed or their legitimate activities curtailed by demands for identification. Through a Freedom of Information request, the Identity Project obtained the TSA's Screening Management SOP, or Standard Operating Procedures Manual. The article details TSA guidelines for requesting ID from persons wishing to travel. Travelers often don't think twice about handing over their ID, but can the TSA demand to see your ID? TSA guidelines specifically require their workers to ask or request, and if the person's ID appears suspect, then the TSA screener must call a law enforcement officer. The article goes on to state, contrary to TSA claims to have firm legal authority for their ID checking and other screening practices, this section of the TSA manual suggests that the TSA knows that their authority is limited, and in particular does not extend to detention, general purpose search, confiscation of documents, or compelled responses to interrogatories. The article concludes, if you're going to be trying to fly without showing ID, or without ones that the TSA finds acceptable, you might want to carry a copy of the procedures manual to remind the TSA that they aren't supposed to detain or delay you. If you do, please, let us know how it goes. Finally, a few quick notes. The World Health Organization has raised the H1N1 swine flu virus pandemic alert to a level 6, the highest possible level. This is the result of the rapid spread of the virus between and within many countries. Under the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act, the WHO's Level 6 pandemic status is a trigger for state governments to allow the exercise of quarantine and seizure powers. There are a few links that we want to refer you to that are worth checking out. Bloomberg had an article on option arm loan resets that will occur over the next few years and will continue to drag housing down. Human Events did an excellent interview with trend forecaster Gerald Celente, and Peter Schiff was interviewed by Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. All are worth checking out, and we have provided links to each in our video description section. Thank you for joining ICN this week. We enjoyed our break, but we're glad to be back reporting the real news. From all of us at Informed Citizen News, we'll see you next week.